Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.
The various Edinburgh festivals are currently exploding into every available space in the Scottish capital, hoping to attract audiences and reviewers to thousands of different shows and events over the month of August. One of the many publications providing extensive coverage of all the Edinburgh festivals is The List magazine, this year celebrating its 40th anniversary, which will be producing 7 print publications in 6 weeks available for free, as well as bringing back its Cross-Festival Awards, which it inaugurated last year and this year has expanded with new categories. I spoke to List Publication Limited CEO Sheri Friers just before the 2025 festival season kicked off and started by asking her to explain what The List is.
So The List magazine is Scotland's biggest and longest standing arts and culture and events magazine. We launched in 1985, back when it was a paid for print publication that came out every 2 weeks. And it basically is, our motto is helping people get a life since 1985, because basically you look to The List if you're looking for ways to spend your time and money, if you're looking to see what's on, and we basically help you work out what to do with your spare time.
So it's very well known in Scotland. It's everywhere when you go to Edinburgh, which is certainly when a lot of people see Scotland at this time of year. So how does it fit into the general Scottish cultural scene and Scottish journalism as well, for that matter, the newspapers scene?
Yeah, well, we're obviously independent, and we really aim to support independent journalism. And when COVID struck and we actually risked closing our doors completely, I launched a crowdfund to basically set up a new business and save it. And the amount of love and support that came out, it was people just happy to put, £10, £20 in, and they were, their reasonings were, well, you were the first publication to pay me to write a review. You were the first publication to review my band in the 80s. And so there's a lot of love and support, and that, we've supported everybody on their way up through the ranks. And so when we needed the help, we were able to sort of get that back on board.
Yeah. Was it surprising the scale of the support that you got then, particularly for a commercial organisation as well?
Yeah, I mean, I always say we're sort of like a borderline charity because, publishing, especially in 2025, is really hard. And the first year we relaunched, there was a paper mill strike in Finland, and there were 6 paper price increases. And it was like, you couldn't make it up. It was, coming off the back of a global pandemic, and where in the world events, left to right were cancelled. So yeah, so basically it's about supporting local, supporting people on their way up. It's not all about having, the celebrity of the moment on the magazine. We're just as likely to have Ewan McGregor on the magazine as we are from, which we, back in March, we had a band that was playing the Hidden Door Festival up here. So it's really all about what we think the readers are into, what we think is of interest. We keep our advertising and editorial really separate so that, our editorial team have the freedom to cover what they want to cover. And it just keeps it tidy that way.
So it was founded in 1985, like you said, by Robin Hodge.
Yeah.
Do you know the story of how and why he founded it?
Yeah, Robin's amazing. Robin is an absolute legend. He's going to be 72 this year, and it is honestly such a privilege to sort of carry this on for him. He was a young chap. He was in his early 30s, and he basically, there's where the List offices used to be. It was a grade A listed building, but it was absolutely derelict. It was like knee deep in pigeon poo. All of the fixtures and fittings had been stolen, and the council wanted to tear it down. And there was loads of protests about it. And Robin at the time went with an architect to the council and said that they would buy the building for a very small amount of money, but on the condition that they would restore it back to its grade A listed beauty. And so they did, and they ended up having to take a loan. I think it was somewhere in the region of like £350,000, which back in the early 80s was a lot of money for, someone in their early 30s. And so that's what they did. And that was the first building. That's where the list was born. And the building itself was built in 1576. So just to give you an idea of the sort of heritage there as well. And that's where the list was born. And it was black and white. And it was back in the day when, there was no computers, there was no internet. Everything was a really, really manual process. And bless Robin, he gave his life to it. He didn't marry, he didn't have kids. The list was everything to him. And, everybody that came to the list and worked at the list became part of the family. We always say the list is a bit like Hotel California. You check in, but you never really check out. And it's very much still like that to this day.
Yeah, I mean, that could sound a bit sinister, but...
I know.
Do you still go back to him sometimes and run things past him?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So when I raised investment to buy the company in 2022, he legally doesn't have anything to do with it, but he will always be, the godfather of the list. And, he comes over to our new offices, at least once or twice a week and sort of comes in. He's like, how we doing? And I'm like, we're doing good, Robin. We're doing good. So yeah, no, it's very much still, I go to him for everything, He might be 72, but it's all up there, and he remembers all of it. So he's a very good resource to have.
So what's the relationship between, we see this in fact and fiction sometimes when it goes bad, but what's the relationship between the CEO and the editor of a magazine?
We've got a great relationship. Brian Donaldson, who's the editor, he was actually at the list longer than I was. I started in 2002 and he was there before. He was like comedy editor and did various sections and stuff. And so when the opportunity came about to relaunch, there was no question. I definitely wanted to work with him. And, we definitely have our sort of niggles every now and again. And that, you wouldn't have that, like, because I look after all the commercial stuff as well. So, he rightfully stands his ground on, the editorial integrity, and I'll always push the barrier just that little bit to see if I can, get him to budge. But for the most part, we work really, really well together. We're a really good team. And, you have to be, as I said, it's so tough to be a publisher and an independent publisher in this day and age that we need to work together for its success. And to be honest, that can be said for the whole team. We went from a team of 25 down to a sort of core team of 6 or 7. So we all have a lot of skin in the game, and it's all more than just a job to us. Like, it's sort of a way of life.
So how did you get involved with it originally?
I moved up from London. Well, actually, I came up from London for a year because I had a boyfriend, and I'm Canadian. And so I came up to Edinburgh because I was going to head back to Canada after a year. And then I got a job at Tea in the Park. Do you remember that festival?
I do, yes.
Yeah, doing press and PR for that. And through them, I met Robin, and he wanted to do, this was back in 2002, and he wanted to do a CD cover mount for all the Tea in the Park artists. That's how far back it goes. And I'd worked in the music industry. I'd worked for U2's record label in London for 6 years. So I was like, have you got anybody that could put a CD together? And he said, no, I don't. And I was like, I could. So I kind of talked myself into this job that didn't exist. Yeah, which wasn't easy. I mean, Robin at first was like, yeah, we just don't have the budget for it. I think it was like 12 grand a year or something. And so I was like, fine, okay. And I was going to quit my job at Tea in the Park and go to Thailand for 6 weeks. And I called Robin before I left and I said, I'm going, I've quit my job. Let me know if anything changes. And he was like, can you meet me for lunch on Friday? And he offered me the job. And so I started off as a promotions exec. And we did, I think, 2 or 3 CD cover mounts. We were the first magazine to do a download cover mount back when downloads were just starting. We put on these codes so you could download. I think there was a Foo Fighters song and a Killers track on there. We were the first publication in the UK to do that. Yeah. And then the website launched and everything went digital.
And 23 years later, you're still there.
Yeah.
So you've been... you were up with the technology right back then from when you started, but things have changed a lot in 40 years.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we didn't even have a website. In 2002, we didn't have a website. And I went off on maternity leave in 2005. And Robin basically brought the whole team that set up scotsman.com over to list.co.uk. And they set up our initial website. And yeah, I mean, everything just changed dramatically. And, AI, that wasn't even a thing, it was barely everybody even had their own computer on their own desk. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
And journalism is struggling. So how do you survive in today's online world when everything seems to be, all the information that you can buy in a newspaper seems to be available online for free? Yeah,
it is a challenge, I won't lie. I think because we've been around for 40 years and we've sort of ridden those waves through those times, there's a trust and there's like a loyal audience, and people continually come back to the list because they know they can trust it, and the editorial tone is not, it's not clickbaity, and it's not, you can't, like I said, we keep advertising and editorial very separate. So you won't see a full page ad with a full page feature right beside it. We just try and keep that really separate. And that sort of has put us in good stead over these years. And, AI, of course, you can go in and ask for, you can get an article in about 30 seconds. But I think anybody that's into quality journalism would read that and see right through that. So we just try to keep that trust with our readers going forward.
Yeah. It's hard to get the balance with websites, particularly when you need to make money to keep going. A lot of regional newspapers, the news there isn't that regional, and it's hard to actually find it underneath all the pop-up adverts. How do you get that balance?
Again, the guys that set up Scotsman.com, who came to set up list.co.uk, they were really strict from the word go, which again, as a commercial, I was like, but. We just had this rule that there was no noise allowed on our site. There wasn't going to be these pop-ups. Wasn't going to be these sort of obtrusive bubbles that popped up that you had to close down. And so we have, obviously you have to now, because of GDPR, you have to tick a couple of boxes before you get to the content. But once you're on there, that is it. It's just straight, good, wholesome content without loads of ads. There are, of course, we have to have ads on there. We're a free publication. We wouldn't exist without it, but we try to keep those as, discreet as possible. And we're lucky because the clients we work with are, their arts, their culture, their event promoters, their festivals. So people tend to want to know about that sort of information. We're not trying to sell Hoovers or that kind of thing.
But you still have a print version, and it's free as well. So
very much so, yeah. I mean, pre-COVID, we were sort of leading in the digital first arena, and then obviously COVID happened. And I genuinely think that people after COVID had such digital fatigue from just staring at screens the whole time that when we came back, I kind of call it our vinyl resurgence, because it's like people wanted something tangible to touch, and they wanted to know that every time they went back to their article they were reading, it was right where they left it, and there wasn't, noisy pop-ups and stuff like that. So our print has like continued to go from strength to strength, and who knows how long that's going to last, but we're definitely seeing where it goes.
Yeah. I was doing an interview with somebody just after lockdown, and he said to me, rather than doing Zoom, he said, can we do it over the phone? He said, because I'm sick of Zoom, because people were sick of Zoom and all of that sort of thing, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah, well, you were watching theatre on screens, you were watching comedy on screens. It was everything just on your screens, and just to have that kind of break and give your eyes a break. And, obviously with a magazine, you're still picking up and reading it, but it doesn't, there's something nostalgic about picking up print.
Yeah, yeah. I've asked a few CEOs of theatres this, but at that moment when lockdown came, what was it like in the office? What was the conversation like when you found out what it was going to be like?
Oh gosh, hindsight is a beautiful thing. I think I missed. I don't think nobody knew how bad it was going to be. I remember we put the sign on the door saying that we were going to close the office for 2 weeks, and then it ended up being almost 2 years. And there was also no magazine at the end of it. We stopped publishing in April 2020. That was our last magazine. And in hindsight, a new CEO had come in February 2020, the first new CEO in decades. And of course, he had come from a digital background, and of course, he couldn't have possibly have known what was around the corner. And so, quite soon on, now that I look back, I could see that his plan was to fold the magazine and put all the eggs in the digital basket, because we also had an event information services. So on list.co.uk, there was approximately 40,000 events around the UK at any one time. So the two companies were going to split. List was going to fold, and the information services, which has now become a company called Data Thistle, and Thistle's an anagram of the list, just to sort of keep it on the family. And now I'm a client of theirs, so I now pay a fee for their feed every month for all of their events to populate my website. So yeah, it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I got made redundant. My team all got made redundant, and it really was a kind of like, wow, it's over. And luckily, I managed to get some investment together and save it. And it was the best thing I ever did.
And what did you actually buy out the company?
Yeah, we set up, I got some investors on board, and we bought the URL, we bought the archive, we bought, everything to do, the logo, everything pre-2022 we bought and relaunched it. So it used to be called The List Limited, and now it's called List Publishing Limited. And I mean, it operates under the same sort of values and everything, for sure. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And now you've got a version in Adelaide as well, in Australia.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, we'd gone over in 2019 and 2020 because Adelaide wanted a white label version of list.co.uk, because the only events collator they had was through the councils, and they wanted something a little bit more independent. And so I'd gone over with no view to do print, but for the digital side. And in 2020, I came back with a chunky little sum to do a recce on it. And I think that was the 9th of March. And then by the end of March, that money was whisked away and put into crisis management, because Adelaide didn't need an events website anymore, because there was no events. So it wasn't until 2022 when the CEO of Adelaide Fringe came over, and she was like, we could really use something like the list. And despite it being 10,000 miles apart, and because the Adelaide Fringe and the Edinburgh Fringe are sort of so aligned, a lot of people already knew what the list was. And so I was terrified to do it, gave it a go, and we got such a warm reception, and the magazine came out and we won a big award for it in the UK. And then we launched the Winter Adelaide Festival Guide. And so, yeah, it's kind of gone from strength to strength there too.
Well, it's getting to be a busy time in Edinburgh in the next couple of weeks. So how would you prepare for festival season?
Whew. I think, with my team now, this is our 4th festival. So we're going in feeling quite confident, and it's my 23rd festival. So you just embrace it. It's such a privilege to be such a big part of the biggest arts festival in the world that it's a lot of work. We do like 7 publications in 6 weeks, and it's crazy, but we're all working on stuff that we absolutely love and we're invested in. So like, I know my team might not agree with me, but I don't think it feels like a lot of work a lot of the time, because we're just getting to do something that we really love doing. But we keep expanding. We've got our List Festival party that kicks off the Fringe. It's our 30th one of those. And then we launched the List Festival Awards last year. We're the only pan-festival award ceremony that gives cash as prizes across all the festivals, so that we sort of bookend the festival with the festival party for 2,500 people. And then we do the List Festival Awards at the end of the month to celebrate the artists. And then just a whole lot of reviews in the middle.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the awards, because there are a lot of awards these days. So what made you decide that we needed a new award ceremony?
Again, I think it was the fact that we could celebrate all of the festivals. There's a lot of awards in and around the Fringe, but we wanted, a pan-festival award ceremony that celebrated everything about the Edinburgh Festival, because it's not just the Fringe. You've got the Film Festival, you've got the International Festival, the Book Festival, and it's such a celebrated city, and we just wanted to sort of put a spotlight on that.
And it's expanding. You've got new categories as well this year.
Yep. We've expanded. We've got 3 new Fringe awards, because we had like 5 Fringe awards last year, but none of them were specific to comedy. And so we wanted to bring in a comedy one, and we wanted to bring in kids. And then we've brought in an LGBTQIA+ award for this year. So, and then we've also teamed up with the Soho Playhouse in New York. So 2 of the award winners will win flights, accommodation, and an off-Broadway run in New York, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably more valuable than just a trophy, isn't it? So how did that come
absolutely.
about?
Yeah. We do a lot of work with Darren Lee Cole from Soho Playhouse, and there's also a chap called David Graham from the Sit Up Theatre here. And when we were talking about launching the List Festival Awards, they were like, how can we get involved? They were both kind of doing their own things, and it just made sense to team up with us and give it a bigger platform and give it a bigger voice.
Do you go out yourself to watch things on the festivals, or do you get the time to?
I do. I don't as much as the reviewers, because we do upwards of 400 different reviews. So obviously I'm trying to make sure all the magazines are getting out the door and the events are happening and stuff. But yeah, it's a sort of, at the start of the festival, my kids used to be like, is this when we don't see you for a month? And I'm like, yep, catch you in September.
What are you looking forward to this year, if you're having to be selective?
So I love the comedy side of stuff, and I'm an absolute sucker for magic. People like watching me watch magic. But the famous Spiegel tent is also back in St. Andrew's Square this year, so I'm really looking forward to that. Club Neverland, I think, is going to be really good. Jordan Gray, who is on the cover of our Edinburgh Festival Guide, I think there's upwards of 3,500 shows this year. So it's just trying to work out what I can go to and see as much as I can.
There are always discussions this time of year. Is the festival getting too big, or is there too much comedy or too much theatre? Where do you stand? Is it too big, or?
No, I don't think it's too big. I think this year is different. I think this is the third biggest Fringe ever, but that's because, due to sort of like the economic crisis and the accommodation issues and stuff, that people are doing split runs. So there's, like I said, around 3,500 shows, but you've got a lot of the shows that are just doing either the first 2 weeks, the middle 2 weeks, or the second 2 weeks. So I think back in the day, there used to be more people would just come in, like, slog and do the whole Edinburgh run for the month, like from start to finish. But for various reasons now, there's more shows because they're shorter runs.
Right.
Which I think works because it gives people more, like, there's definitely more variety, and, you know, you can't complain that there's nothing for you in the festival because there's just so much on offer. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the accommodation issue. That's affecting artists and audiences. Where's that going to go? Do you think something's going to improve there?
I don't know. I really hope so. The powers that be are working feverishly to try and improve it. I think what's happening is people are just having to stay a little bit further outside of Edinburgh, or, you know, down in Leith or over in sort of Livingston, and then just make their way in. So I think it's always been a real bonus that people have been able to stay, like, you know, in the Fringe, on top of the Fringe, and be able to walk to their venues and stuff like that. But just, I think people are getting pushed out a little bit further. So every year I hear people saying, you know, I'm not going to be able to come this year because of accommodation. And yet every year it just gets bigger. So Edinburgh is, you know, it is a magical place to be, and it's people want to be a part of it, which is amazing.
Yeah, somebody's paying it, but does that mean there's less diversity?
Potentially, although we speak to literally thousands of shows, and it's, you know, there's some of my clients are, you know, one-man bands doing this on their own and, you know, investing all they've got into it. And then, of course, you've got, you know, big established names that continue to come back year after year and stuff. So it really is varied. And it depends how big your show is as well. If you're just a one-person playwright, then obviously it's not as crazy. It's the shows that come over from, like, you know, Brazil and Australia and Denmark, and you know, they've got a cast of dozens, and you're like, it's eye-watering. I can't even imagine.
So 40 years, you've got 40 years of legacy behind you. What happens in the future? Have you got any plans to change in any way?
I get asked this question a lot. I think because we are still recovering from the pandemic, and as I said, we went from a team of 25 down to 6 or 7. We're just trying to navigate our way back to where we were and just read the room as well. Like, as I said, before COVID, we were definitely going more digital first. The magazine was out every 2 months. And we've brought that back to every month because of the demand for it. For 27 years, we did the List Eating and Drinking Guide, which was the absolute jewel in our crown. We relaunched a new version of that this year after much demand. Obviously, we're growing over in Adelaide as well. And yeah, it's just sort of like, we do a lot of surveys with the readers and stuff to find out what people are interested in, what people want to know about and stuff. So I don't think there's any I mean, I certainly don't have plans to expand, and go UK wide or move into other cities at the moment, because I still think we've got a lot of work to do in Edinburgh and Glasgow.
That was Sheri Friers, CEO of List Publishing Limited. To find out more and to read the magazine online, including back issues going back to 1985, see list.co.uk. Or if you are in Edinburgh during August, you'll be able to pick up a current issue in print from many different locations around the city.
You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.